now.
All right, we'll go ahead and start the meeting by going over our calendar. Bear with me just a moment. Let me share my screen for you guys.
Ooh, nice backdrop.
There we are. Good.
The backdrop changes all the time. That's just Bing doing its thing for me. All right, so for the month of February, we obviously are already to tonight's club meeting. Tomorrow night on the 4th, we'll have Corn Watch at Cornland. We'll have Garden Stars next week on Tuesday the 8th. Then moving forward to next weekend, we will have Saturday, Sunday out at the park in Chesapeake. And the Girl Scout Star viewing is really more of a private event. George, you're still going to be assisting with that Saturday evening?
Yeah, I'll be there at the Girl Scouts office in Chesapeake.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And then going forward to the following weekend on the 19th, we'll have Skywatch back at Northwest River Park. On February 25th, we have Corn Watch at Cornland again, followed by Night Watch at Chip Oaks. And then that will take us forward into March. On March 3rd, having the club meeting, we will be returning to TCC, fingers crossed, all things going as planned. And we may even have a planetarium presentation on that evening. Leah reached out to me and said that she would be willing to do that for us, as long as, again, everything goes according to plan and we're back in TCC next month. So everybody continue to keep that in our positive thoughts. And then Friday the 4th will be Corn Watch at Cornland. Saturday, March 5th, Skywatch at Northwest River Park. On March the 10th, we have Garden Stars again at Norfolk Botanical Gardens. And then going forward to the 19th, we have Saturday, Sunday. On March 25th, we'll have Corn Watch at Cornland. And then March 26th, Night Watch at Chip Oaks. And then that will be carrying us into April. So that is our calendar. Any questions on any of the events?
Sean did just text me saying I guess he did some computer updates. He's trying to restart and get back in. He's like, feel free to start without me. We're like, I already have, brother. Going on. So I'm up next. Treasurer's report.
Yes.
Well, I guess we did a minute. All right, let's go. Let's rock. Share screen. All right. We have a good amount of money. I just everything balanced out. Paid some stuff. What did we pay? We paid for our PO box for the year. I filed our taxes for the year. And we send a check, or every year we send $100 to the International Dark Sky Association. We got some scholarship, a little bit of scholarship money, and a lot of people paid their dues who, not as many as in December, but there are a lot of due payments, over $600 something. So we are in very good shape. We have enough to fund all of our activities and then some for the year. There's currently, I'm wrapping up the membership, getting everyone to pay their dues. There's still a lot of people on the roster. The purge is getting ready to begin. So right now there's 169 on the roster. 138 of them are paid in full. There's 31 out there who are outstanding. One of them said they sent in a check. 4 of them said they're not going to renew. But I'm hoping that Ben can stop by the PO box here sometime in the near future. I just want to make sure if someone sent their check in, I don't delete them out. And so as soon as I get the final checks, I'm deleting all the people they ain't paid. And but normally when we do that, a lot of times we'll drop around 100 or even below 100. We're not even going to be close to that because I already have 138 who have paid in full for the year. So we are in very good shape membership wise. That's all.
You having a scholarship?
How much do we have in scholarship?
So we have 134 in the primary scholarship, and then we have 940 in Georgie June. I think there's been some of it was last year. I'd have to go check, and we've had a little bit this year, but most of the raffle sale money hasn't come in yet. So I think about maybe $300-400 of that is come in, but most of the raffle sales has not come in. And a lot of people have been donating pretty regularly to the scholarship. Obviously, we need a little bit more to pay it out, since I think we pay out $1,500 there, but we're pretty close. And I'm sure if we asked and said, hey, can some people throw in some shekels, we could easily get there to cover it. We've been getting regular donations from the nature bus, because I know that we've been helping events for her, and she sends us $50 here and there for the scholarship fund. So that's where we stand. Any other questions? Jeff is auditing last year's books to make sure that I don't, I'm not doing any Enron type accounting. Yeah.
When I do the nature bus tours, they have a policy of the people who ride the bus give an honorarium to the speaker, which is me. And I take that money and I put that right back into the scholarship fund. So, and then they also usually make about a $50 donation straight to the scholarship fund. So it adds up a little bit.
So basically you out there getting that cash, George, you making that money. I like that.
I'm not taking it.
Hustle. George is a hustler. Oh, we got Sean back.
I got something to add to the minutes. I'm doing the audit for the treasurer, and it's looking real good. I just haven't finished 100%, and it should be finished within the week, and we'll report, I guess, by the next meeting. It's looking good though.
Sweet. He hasn't found my wholly owned subsidiary, spinoff, whatever's.
Offshore bank accounts.
Yeah.
No condos and like that.
He'll never figure out how I got that new Telview eyepiece. All right, that's all I got. So John, to get you, we've done the VP's report, we suspended with the minutes, and we've done treasurer's report.
But no one can hear me.
Now we
hear
can.
you. Well,
Okay.
I can hear you. Yes.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. All right. I'm still not set up all the way. I had to restart my computer and I put some updates. Hopefully that helped. I don't know what was going on there. Of course, the one time you turn on the camera, it doesn't work. Let's see here. Open up my agenda. Okay, so you said you just finished up with Rich. So Ben, did you have anything to add for the scholarship report this month?
We were waiting for some more numbers, and it looks like we're pretty much right there at what we're able to do. So we'll just be repeating the what we did in 2021, the $1,500 back by amateur astronomer scholarship amount, and then the $1,000 Georgie June memorial scholarship. So we'll get that out to everybody
When do you start contacting the schools, Ben?
tomorrow.
Sounds good. Hopefully get more applications this year. Let's see. Next, Bruce. I'm sure you got some stuff to talk about with Alcor.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So as I have been threatening since November, sent out my email to try to kick off this pipe dream I have of relocating East Coast Star Party to Virginia State Parks, specifically Chip Oaks State Park, probably sometime this fall of 2022. I sent it to Mr. Lozier, Miss Erb, Mr. Reynolds, myself, and my contact within the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation up at Staunton River State Park, and Mr. Jamie Hanzik of the Chapel Hill Astronomy Society. So again, my fantasy is to get Jamie, who said he would help to coach us on a business model of how we would do this, maybe 3 or 4 day event. It would be much smaller in scope than Staunton River is. And Miss Allen said that she would provide me connections within the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation. So yeah, I'm just kind of waiting to see. Without those two from the Department of Conservation and Recreation and Chapel Hill, we really can't do much. For the recipients of that email, I hope that I don't want to do like an endless thread of bouncing around ideas. And I think we should have, apples on Friday night. No, I want to do just like a Zoom for like an hour to kick this off and, answer who, what, why, when, where, how. That's it. So don't reply all to that, and we'll keep it simple. Anyhow, if I don't get anything from them inside a week, I'm not trying to fast track this. I have their phone numbers here from when I talked to them in October at Staunton River. I will give them a courtesy call and shake what Mama gave me and turn on the charm and try to enlist their help, because I really don't want to reinvent the wheel for this. I want to try to take the best of what Chapel Hill has done and try to translate it over here. Okay, so I'm still in waiting mode. As soon as I get everybody's availability of the people I mentioned, I will hold it up to the light and see where the holes are, and then just schedule something, probably on my personal Zoom. But if we can co-op this one, this one can go over an hour, right?
No, Jeff's can go over an hour.
Okay, well, I would probably want to co-op that if I can, because my personal Zoom won't go over an hour, so anyhow, if there's a way we can do that, I appreciate it. So I would also, can I share my screen?
I think so, sure.
Okay. So, I want to share one window. Let me make sure I can do this. Okay. Everybody see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the action I'm trying to get in on. This link was also in the what magazine was it in? It was in the AAA magazine. I get AAA magazine because I break down a lot and have to get towed from the middle of nowhere where I do astronomy camping in the middle of the dark. So yeah, January, February, March 2022. Okay, they had this link in here for Virginia State Parks, your national dark sky sites. As you can see, Staunton River State Park is of course up there. George has trekked to James River State Park along with several others. There's Natural Bridge State Park and Sky Meadows. There's the map of where they all are. It looks like some truly amazing dark skies available. Chip Oaks is not one of these parks, but I'm not hung up on that. I'm just trying to restart the East Coast Star Party. Okay. There are multiple events at all these parks. It's just unending. And a lot of these are sponsored by the different astronomy clubs, throughout Virginia. So I'm not making this stuff up. I mean, this I think is, trying to strike while the iron is hot to get a venue that is cooperative for long term, as opposed to getting kicked out by KOA at the former Hampton Lodge campground. So I also note that the Staunton River Star Party is scheduled for March 28th to April 3rd. I'm planning on dragging my camper back out there again and freezing. Interestingly, for Bob Barrowline's benefit, the registration link for Chaos is not open yet, but anyway, that's where they think they're going to have it. Anyway, you know, and also, you know, in the email I sent out, again, you know, an endless, you know, crew astronomy club, astronomy night, Northern Virginia Astronomy Club. All these clubs are hooking into Virginia State Park and doing events. And they don't require permits because it's a park sponsored event. So anywho, pluses and minuses to this idea, you know, we'd have to probably do one public night. Stone River does a public night, but I think the pros outweigh the cons. Okay. Anyway, so just to prove to you, I'm not making this stuff up. Okay. That's
I've
all.
never been to the Stanton River Star Party. I might try to go to that one in March.
It
see
is
what it's like.
awesome. I love it. I mean, you know, Bob Barrowline can back me up if he's still on here somewhere. But do you like it, Bob?
That's a great party. I mean, you even have a minimal electricity into the field, and if you get close enough to the house there, or the I don't know what they call it, reception center, you even have minimal Wi-Fi facilities. They have good porta potties out in the field. You have restrooms and showers at that facility, and if you're going down to the restroom by the pool, you have facilities there, and they're usually a lot closer in travel even to the East Coast Star Party for their showers and so forth.
Yeah, Bob, just so you know, your audio is pretty broken up. So I think we got most.
Most of that. Yeah, we'd have to have a much more scaled down version, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Getting started.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm, you know, the stuff I do like this is truly crawl, walk, run. I don't. If we get the permit, do the 3 or 4 days, you know, advertise it. You know, have we don't have to have current and, you know, out to the field like Stone River does. We don't have to have speakers. I'm just thinking, you know, having the venue available and doing, you know, one meal on Friday night of, you know, spaghetti like we used to do, if the park will let us, which I hope they will. And then, you know, we can add to it in 23, but I don't think doing it in the spring of 22 with Omicron craziness is a good idea. So that's kind of my thinking right now.
If we can do this, if we get Chipokes on board and everybody else, I would suggest we take a group of us, a couple of us, to go out and walk the land instead of having set up in the parking lot like we do for night watch. There might be a better area over by the campsites or the cabins or someplace that's a little bit better suited for a star party.
I agree. And so there's large open fields. If you've ever been to Chip Oaks, you know, just south of the access road that goes to where the plantation home is, I think there's a lot of open fields that are similar to what's at Stone River that maybe the Rangers would let us have access to. The campsite is like Stone River. It's full of trees and you can't see squat. So there's no good horizon where you want to put your RV. So initially, you know, probably tents would work. I don't know. I have no idea if they would let us boondock RVs on the field or not, like Stone River does. So, but again, since Stone River does, I'm hoping that, you know, Chip Oaks and looking at what the rest of the parks of Virginia are doing will not, you know, throw up the shields and say no and over manage this.
I'll bring up something here if you can hear me. Am I still broken up?
Yes.
Yeah, but we can hear you.
Okay, the over there by the old sawmill, there's a pretty good sized field, and they've used that quite often for even equestrian events, which they bring their trailers and everything into.
Yeah.
So that might be a good option to look at.
That is the one I'm thinking of. Yes. So anyhow, So more to follow. I'll try to update the club each month on where I am. But I have made good on my threat to kick this off. So any help appreciated. You know, the 6 of us that are on there, I guess, are the initial committee. And we can see where it goes from there. Other than that, you know, keep doing your projects. I'm working on globular clusters, and I would ask the owner of Loyola Observatory, did you get a hold of your man to get credit for your double star pin or not? Or maybe Ben went away. Okay. Anyhow, Ben,
What happened? What I missed? Sorry.
did you get in contact with the coordinator to get credit for your double star pin?
I was gonna do that in new business, but am I up?
Okay, well, it relates to AL stuff. So
There it is. Woohoo!
okay, so
Yes, it did.
Ben has physical evidence that he is our most recent pin recipient. So everybody be like Ben and go get lots and lots of pins. And hopefully when we have an actual in-person meeting, we can announce them
Opening
from.
up as we speak.
Here
Can you see?
it is. Yay!
All right.
All right. Yeah.
Cool.
So
Hey, Ben, I started the double star list about 10 years ago. One of these days I'll finish it.
It's only 100.
I have this.
They're not easy.
I have this really sad bag of pins. You know, I need to find a better way to display how much I've frozen in my life under.
Get a merit badge sash like the Boy Scouts.
No. I've already got one of those. I'm not going back.
This one was a tough one.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
You just have to plow through.
Oh my. So again, I am removing myself as the middleman. You know, during COVID, you all know what you're doing. The documentation that Sean Lozier and George Reynolds and Ben Loyola has submitted to me for these pins is so exhaustive that there's no way that I could doubt it. So,
So Bruce, you threw me a curveball because he said he's not being part of the person. So I had to take my observing report with all the star charts and scan this thing in and submit it. So it took quite a bit of time PDFing the heck out of this thing. So
yeah, right. Well, and that you could rip it apart and dump it through an automatic scanner. I rip off works to do that. So
sure sent it to you.
So anyway, yeah, PDF is the way to go. You can mail your paper and do it a snail mail old school, or you can PDF it like these past 3 gentlemen I mentioned, and that expedites the whole shebang. So good on those guys. And whoever wants me to, you know, attach pins to them in the near future, just let me know. That's it. Thank you.
Bruce,
Oh.
my next one I'm going for is the Mercier binocular one, by the way.
Okay, so my fantasy is to still get a grid of dates like this. Does this exist yet for this year?
No, I will get that done for us though.
Okay, that would be awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bruce.
Sir.
Ben, if you can though, I was told by Jeff that we'll probably be back in March in TCC. So I would like you to bring your certificate and bring your pin, because I
Sure. Okay.
give those in front of the group.
Yeah, that's a good way to promote it for sure. I'll do that.
So let's see what else we got here.
They're requiring students to wear N95 masks and going through all kinds of wickets. They don't have to prove any vaccinations or anything like that. So I don't know, be prepared to go through some wickets. That's all I can say.
This is not the Olympics.
My girls have been in school for months and no masks, man. At all.
Well,
Thank
hopefully
God.
back in there in March. I'm looking forward to that. But let's see here. Triple RT, anyone know if it's up? I haven't been on that site in a minute. I'll be guessing with no one talking, nobody knows.
Yep.
Let me see.
P.
Pull up the robotic network here.
You logging in? You trying to find it?
Yeah.
Okay, you got it. All right.
Fan Mountain. You guys can all see with me. Well, it looks like it's working. It's just closed because of weather. That's good. That's an improvement over last time.
Good.
Well, since I'm already sharing the screen, I wanted to share this. If you guys didn't know it, we are in Merle. We're part of Merle, the Mideast region of the Astronomical League. And they have this cool website set up where you guys can go on here and see like what events are coming up. So you don't have to go to different websites. They keep pretty good track of these events coming up. And I get emails all the time from Don Nab, I think is his name. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Nobody? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure.
Don't know what to say.
Sean, I get those emails with the monthly sky plots.
Yeah. But you can see like all the different clubs that are with us. These are the states we're part of this Mideast region. So they list all the astronomy events that are coming up. So if you guys want a quick website you can go to and look instead of looking at the individual ones, this has all the information where you can track down everything else. And that will lead into the presentation when we get to that, because this Don sent me an email about this, and I've got a video from the Chester County Astronomical Society that they did a Zoom meeting and brought in someone from NASA. But I also wanted to show you, can you guys see that good? Did I zoom in enough?
Mm-hmm.
On the Groups IO site, these are all the events that are coming up in 2022 so far. We should get an update on these ones on the bottom here in the next few weeks. So if you're looking to get out there, we've got some stuff coming up. And let's see though. Old business, which Bruce covered.
Old business. I got one.
What you got, George? The only thing I have is what Bruce already covered.
Tickets. Sell your tickets. Buy your tickets. Raffle coming up. That's one old business. Another old business. Our order came in. We got a hat, a number of shirts, a couple sweatshirts some people ordered, and I've got extras for sale. What are they? $12 a piece, Sean?
The shirts,
15.
Shirts are 12. Sweaters are 20 something. It's all on the website.
Yeah, I've got the price for the sweatshirts. So is it? I can't remember what it is for the shirts.
It's 12 for the shirts.
$12 for the
12 for
shirts.
shirts and the hats, I think. Yeah. So if you have, if you want a shirt, we've got couple different sizes and colors. We have gray, dark gray, blue, light blue, dark blue. Don't have any wild green or yellow or red, but if you want them, you can order them later.
I ordered the most popular sizes to sell or colors because I figured that was best. The blue, everybody loves the blue. In fact, I'm wearing it right now, the blue.
Has anybody set the date for the raffle for Georgia June?
Yeah, it's April 7th. It says on the ticket too, if you purchase one. It should say on the ticket, I thought. April 7th. That's the club meeting in April.
Yes.
All right, and it might be kind of hard to get one over the Zoom meeting, but I'm gonna purchase a couple or three.
We got a way around that. get a hold of one of the officers and they'll help you.
Yeah, just
By the
email
neck?
us or- We can send you the tickets if you send us the money.
Yeah. However you want to do it, get a hold of one of the officers and they will hook you up.
We have a PayPal workaround.
Yeah.
Is what he's referring to. So if you talk to one of the officers, we can get you straight.
Yeah, very good. I'll do that.
COVID friendly raffle. Does anybody else have old business? Was that all yours, George?
So like Ben does.
Yeah, I need to confirm, Samantha, do we ever hear from Bird? I haven't seen him on.
I have not. No, there's still been no response, even when you did the follow-up email.
Yeah, okay, I will, let me go reach out directly to the Skynet RRT coordinator for Skynet. I'm gonna email him now and see if I can kind of take on that role, because I haven't seen or heard from Bird in a while. I pray that he's okay. Has anybody heard from him? No? Yeah.
Mhm.
He said he was gonna stay inside until COVID was over, last like a year and a half ago.
I haven't had
Well,
a bird sighting in
We have
over a year.
Zoom. We have Zoom. All right,
I looked on the VPAS website. They haven't been doing anything.
They haven't, no.
okay.
So I hope he's doing all right.
All right. I'm emailing Ed Murphy. He's the University of Virginia Department of Astronomy right now, and I'll see if I can find out.
Thank you, Ben. I know it was another thing I wanted to follow up on.
What's Bird's actual name? Anybody know?
Lawrence?
Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence Taylor. He's got an email at NASA and he has a private one also.
Any other old business? Well, I have one more thing that's kind of old business with new news. Do you guys remember back a few months ago, I told you about the Music and Astronomy Ambassador Program that was a grant submission that we were asked to be a part of? Well, it did not go through. And I have some notes that Dr. Donald Lebowitz sent me, and he said not to be discouraged because only 5% of the 60 proposals were funded. So it's easier to get Hubble Space Telescope time than to get funded for this grant. 12% of those proposals were accepted. And they apparently, when he was looking at the comments, their comments were not accurate with the proposal. Like it was basically, we're going to set up at concerts to show the stars, and the NASA people were like, how are you going to get the people to come to your event when they're at a concert? And it's like, we're at the concert with them. They just look through the telescope. So there was just little things like that. But he said he was going to private funding. So I don't know how he's planning on doing that, but I told him if it goes through to let us know we're still interested. So just give you guys an update on that one. But I can go ahead and go into new business then, if you guys are ready. I
got some new business.
Go
I
ahead.
got a box in the mail today from Night Sky Network. It's another kit. It's called Galactic Quest. Galactic Quest. Now, this is not something that you can just do in 5 minutes. This is a series of exercises. It's set up for the 4-H club, but there's things that they can do. They can make a little telescope. It comes with a little kit for a plastic telescope about 6 inches long, and they can sketch a constellation, and they can there's a board game for playing, going from things to things, places to place on the board, and earning resources for your space adventure. And there's another one called the Cosmic Claw that they can make a mechanized claw to pick up things remotely. And at the end of that, they could get a certificate. The certificate is there. It could be signed by whoever administers it. So this would take a weekend or a couple of hours at least to go through the whole thing, or maybe do it in steps of 3 or 4 days, different weeks or something like that. But anyway, it's interesting. It's something we can look into.
Maybe that'll be good when you do one of those smaller scouting events.
Something that we can do over a couple of hours. Yeah.
George, we may want to look through there and see if some of those could be utilized for the Malibu Science Night as well.
Possibly. Yeah.
Like building the little small telescopes, or yeah, just pick one of them, obviously, not having them go through the series of them since it's just the one night.
Yep, that could be done.
That might be a good idea since it'll be daylight during that event. Won't be able to see anything.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple cards in there with pictures of constellations, and they say put the card about 50 feet away and let them look through it with their telescope and identify the constellation and sketch that constellation. So it's set up for daytime use.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm glad you guys all understand why we got that kit too. It's because of your volunteer hours. So thank you for that. Thank you for logging those. And Jeff, you had something?
I got a couple things. David Schultes mentioned that he's a new member from Denver, Colorado, and we wanted to welcome him, but everybody should do the same. And I think we got Dr. Wright. I think he just checked in, honorary member of the faculty. Is that correct, Dr. Wright? He's muted though. Well, maybe it's not Dr. Wright. Okay, maybe it's not Dr. Wright.
BBAA though, David. Thank you for joining the club, and hopefully we entertain you enough on these Zoom meetings.
But I do have something that's in June that's coming up. There's a rocket in Cape Canaveral that is going to the moon. It's going to circle the moon and come back with no astronauts. And I don't believe they're taking any riders, so nobody can get a rider. But we can take a trip out there if you guys want to take a club trip to Cape Canaveral. I think that's a good idea. We can talk that up. The Rocket Club is going to do the same thing. Randy Regan, he's not here today, but he and I were going to go together. Then our wives wanted to go too, so I think they're going to come with us. But I just wanted to mention that it's something that hasn't happened in about I don't know how many years since the first Apollo mission. All they did was circle the moon and come back manned. Then I think they had a manned mission without men, and they circled the moon and came back too. So anyway, we're going to the moon again, y'all, and it's related to astronomy, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
That's actually what
speaking of rockets, Jeff, I was talking to the Girl Scout counselor yesterday, and the Girl Scout Council is getting into they want to do a rocket thing, and she didn't know of anybody in the local area, so I mentioned that you might be able to help them out.
Yeah, just send her my email address and I'll fix her up.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
Is there any other new business? I wanted to make sure, David, you heard me. I said, welcome to the BBAA. Glad to have you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm a long-term member of the Denver Astronomy Club, and I'm hoping to move to Virginia Beach later this year. So I'm a long-time ATMer. I'm an operator, a senior operator with the 1894 20-inch Clark telescope here in town. So I'm relatively hardcore in our club. So I'm really looking.
One of our members.
Sorry?
One of our members just retired and moved out to Colorado.
You should join. You should join our club.
He is a member of the club in. I forgot the name of the place. Did you remember? Do you remember what it is, Sean?
Is it like Lakewood something?
That's where I live. there's no club in Lakewood.
Okay.
Chuck Yago.
Chuck Yago, yeah.
Since we went on Facebook and all, there's 700 members in our club now. So it used to be a nice, tight little, tight-knit community, but now it's massive. So of course, there's only like 50 of us that are actually active. But
Yeah, Chuck has a ranch up in the mountains somewhere, so I don't think he's near Denver.
No, it's not near Denver, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
he's a member of I just looked at his email, Dark Skies of the Wet Mountain Valley and Colorado Springs Astronomy Association are the ones he has listed as.
yeah, Colorado Springs, the Colorado Springs Club, CSAS, has their own dark sky site in the Wet Mountains.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, beautiful site if you ever get a chance to go.
Very cool. Well, we're looking forward to meeting you when you get in the area. Make sure reach out to us.
I'll bring my homemade scope.
Perfect. You will fit right in.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's see what else we got here. Anybody else have new business? The only other thing, I had two other items to discuss. One is I recently made an email address for George Reynolds, that since he is not a VP anymore, but he does all this outreach, and it's george.reynolds@Back Bay Astro. And we can make 1,000 email addresses. So if one of you does outreach and doesn't want to give out your actual email to the public, let me know and I will make one for you and you can have it. I have no problem doing that. Everybody can have 3 email
I was
addresses.
thinking, I want 20.
You got it.
By the way, the picture behind me, that's me with my telescope at the Colorado Springs Dark Sky site.
Beautiful.
You're gonna miss those skies when you get out here.
You will not have that here.
Oh, yeah.
Not Virginia Beach.
I know.
Let's see.
Planets at high power that we rarely have.
Bring your best filters.
Yep. So if you guys want to email though, just shoot me an email at the president and I'll make one for you. And if you know any of our new members that is looking to get a scope, I have a donated Orion 130 STEQ, and I'm picking up another one next Tuesday when we do Garden Stars on the way there, and it'll be perfect for a child. It's a National Geographic one. So I'm storing them here. You guys know how that goes. My wife wants them gone. Find someone. Let's see. I guess we'll move on to observing reports if there's no more new business though. Anybody got any?
This past Tuesday night, we had an event out at Carrollton Library, and I was set up in the middle of the parking lot where there's lots of lights, but Sean was smart to move farther north away from the lights, and another new member, Sandy, had her scope out in the shadows too, so they could actually see something. But we had some good dark skies. You could see the Orion nebula and the whole constellation Orion, and I was able to point out some of the constellations to the visitors.
Yeah, it was a good event.
Definitely.
Sam brought half the people there apparently for the library.
No. I just had a small group with me.
And that was half of them. Any other observing reports?
Yes, Mike Conley and I met with some Girl Scouts at the Gloria Day Church over here at just off of Fox Hill Road. We had probably about 30, 45 people drop by, looked at the stars. We had brownies and Girl Scouts. Everybody had a great time, and we looked at Orion, Uranus. We had a lot of light pollution too. We were real close to Fox Hill Road, if you know where that's at. So yeah, and we had a great time, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. As per normal, they were more impressed with the green laser than they were the stars, I think.
That's par for the course.
Oh, one other observing report. My wife just finished quilting a quilt that a lady brought to her, and she got it today. And on the quilt, she had Ursa Major, the Big Dipper and the North Star in the proper positions. And Linda quilted it so it had swirls and stars all over it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I did some solar the other day with my new Lunt 50 solar scope. I bought that to replace the PST that I thought was broken. And then when I played around with the PST after I bought the expensive Lunt, I did some work on the PST and I actually got that back working again. So now I have two. But anyway, with the I got a question for the solar. I mean, right now, this past week, there's been some really nice spots on the sun and some pretty big proms sticking out of it. So it's been fun watching it, at least this week. But with the Lunt, I don't know, are there any other Lunt owners online right now? Because it has a pressure tuning tuner on it, as opposed to the PST that's a tilting one to get the change in the with the Doppler effect. And the Lunt, it's this big huge knob sticking perpendicular out of the telescope, but it is extremely hard to twist and turn into to get the pressure going on it. And I'm just wondering if there was something I'm doing wrong. I get the right changes in the observing, but it just seems awful hard to do, and I just didn't know whether I was doing something irregular. The instructions they give to you are not very detailed. They're just just general sentences about what to do and nothing, not much. And I tried Googling it, but didn't really come across some answers that I could figure out. So I was just wondering.
Well, Tom, I know of two people in the club that have a Lunt. Jim.
I know Chuck did.
Chuck
at least he had talked about it, and I probably ought to just email him and double check with him.
Mel Spruill has one too, and he's in the local area. You can contact Mel, and I'm sure he'd be willing to help you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll
Tom,
look into that.
Bob here. I have the Lunt 50 single stage also, and I noticed that it is, you have to have a solid mount to turn that knob, and they say that when you get it set up, you can almost leave it. I don't know if I like that or not. Occasionally, you have to let the gas out and let it go. But overall, it's been a pretty good scope, but you have to have a stable mount to turn that big knob on it.
Yeah, and that's another issue there. I got to twisting that thing. It moves around a little bit, so I always have to reset it after I've brought the pressure up on it. But and I get the tripod I'm using is more of a camera tripod. I got a Zeiss one. It's a real good tripod, but it's not necessarily for that kind of telescope stuff. But yeah, when you're twisting that thing, it kind of brings it off a little bit, so I have to keep on realigning. But other than that, it's a nice scope that I like, and I like it a little bit better than the PST. I know isn't going to last much longer, so I was glad that I went ahead and got the Lunt. And it works fine, and I can add more pieces onto it. That's the thing. The PST, there isn't really much to. There's no accessories that will make it better, other than an eyepiece or two. But with the Lunt, you can keep on adding more blockers, a bigger blocker on and things like that. So, so I figured that eventually I'll work my way up into that.
You're muted, Sean.
Sorry, I said, does anybody else have any observing reports? All right, well, I was just looking at the video. That's why I muted it here so I could see what's going on. It looks like it's gonna run an hour. Is that gonna be all right for everyone, or would you prefer to just have the link? Because I mean, I'll play, we can fast forward through any parts. Basically what this is Don Nab from the Astronomical Society sent me this video, and they brought in a speaker, and let me get his name here, is Brian Matisak from NASA, and it's about the return to the moon and the Artemis. Is that the name of it, George?
Artemis.
So, I mean, we could play it if it starts running too long. Like, I have not watched it all. I watched some of it. It seemed pretty informative, but we can go from there. But I also wanted to send you guys a link I have
Go
here.
ahead and run it, and then also send us the link in email or
in the chat.
Inside.
I put a link to the group's IO in the chat, and also we have a celebrity in the Leanne Red Lagos in the gallery
author?
too. Yeah, an author.
I saw that. I didn't
yeah.
want to embarrass her because she's celebrity status. So
He's a celebrity. Sean, be sure to, there's a lower left-hand corner, there's a little checkbox for the audio. Be sure to check that audio if you're going to play a video, okay?
Okay.
You'll see it when you go to share, right before you hit the share.
Okay.
Okay, see it?
No, I don't yet. I was actually.
You will.
I was sending the stuff in the chat first that you guys wanted. So the first link is the PDF that they made for it. And that's hosted on our website. You guys can download that.
I see it.
Then here's the YouTube link. And let me open this thing up.
Now it continues.
Do you have security there, Dave?
Okay, so click share.
So David Cruz, we're at
You need it. I mean, you're gonna need somebody.
we're at 7:31. Let's do another minute or
Share
two, then we'll
sound.
get started.
Am I working for you guys? Can you hear?
No, it's not sharing yet.
That's a record for a meeting already.
I see Don Nab.
Attend
So 14 on YouTube and 30 on Zoom. Is that what you said?
We're at 60 people now total.
Bunch of
so
people
that's a
in-
record.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're sharing.
Brian, you're popular.
So you guys can't see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll fast forward. They said it starts around 7. So
After
fast
that,
forward the
then
video.
you can have Bruce introduce Brian, okay?
Fantastic.
The plan put together last evening. So just so you know, we're at 54,
Well, I don't know how
75
this
people.
works,
That's a
but
record
it's horrible.
for any of our meetings. So wonderful. Thanks for everyone who. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and get the video rolling.
Does that look all right?
And
to you
again,
guys?
if you're just coming on, please mute.
Pixelated.
yourself. We would appreciate that very much.
It's going fast. He's fast forwarding, I think.
All right, I'm going to start. The first thing is a video. So here we go.
Hold on. I don't know what was happening, but I wasn't doing it right. This may not work. Let me try one more time.
To become a NASA solar system.
That's a record. Everything is. So just so you know, we're at 54,
Okay.
75
I'll try
people. That's a
one more time to
record
do this.
for any of our meetings. So wonderful. Thanks for everyone who.
Share sound.
All right, so I'm going to
optimize
share my
for
screen
video.
and get the video rolling. And again, if you're just coming on, please mute yourself. We would appreciate that very much. And all right, I'm going to start. The first thing is a video. So here we go.
Did you guys see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it pixelated? It looks fine for me now.
Preview for all audiences.
That's what I'm saying.
Looks
Yeah,
fine.
that looks nice and clear.
I don't know why it has stalled. There we go.
We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind. Those were NASA astronaut Eugene Cernan's hopeful, prophetic words as the last Apollo mission left the moon in 1972. Before he boarded the lunar module, Cernan wrote his daughter's name into the lunar dust, and there it remains, undisturbed, a symbol of humanity's first venture to another world. It's time for humanity to return back to the moon to explore like never before. The unknowns are calling. We will return to the moon. We will travel there using the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built, the Space Launch System. We will learn how to live and work in deep space. We will advance technology and science, not only to support human exploration, but also life on Earth. We will take what we've learned on the moon and go beyond. We will provide inspiration and opportunity for future generations. NASA's Artemis missions are happening right now. Artemis I is coming, the first step in a new era of exploration and wonder. NASA's powerful Space Launch System will send explorers and large cargo to the moon for the Artemis missions. With Apollo, we came in peace for all mankind. With Artemis, we return to stay for all of humanity. The unknowns are calling, and NASA is answering.
Yeah.
Hey, Don, this is Brian. I want to do a quick voice check. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear fine. Sounds great.
Awesome.
Okay, Bruce, you're up.
Okay, so hello everybody. It's really a pleasure to introduce Brian Matisak. I first heard Brian speak at a National Space Society venue some time ago, and I thought to myself, we got to get this guy to come and talk to the CCAS. So Brian is the deputy manager of the Systems Engineering and Integration Office at the Space Launch System at the Marshall Space Flight Center. And in that role, he provides both programmatic and technical leadership for the systems engineering and integration aspects at the vehicle level for the SLAS program. Prior to that time, Brian has had extensive experience at NASA in various capacities in the reusable solid rocket booster project during the space shuttle system. And he has a pretty long, distinguished career at NASA, so much so that he has received NASA's Space Flight Awareness Leadership Award, among other NASA Achievement Awards for all of his accomplishments. So it's really a privilege and an honor to introduce Brian to you, and he's going to be talking to us today about NASA's Space Launch System and the Artemis program to get us back to the moon. So welcome, Brian. Welcome.
Hey, Bruce, thank you very much. Hey, just a little tidbit of information from me. My mom and dad are from Luzerne County, so just a little bit north of where some of you guys reside. So I kind of feel a little bit like I'm talking to my family up north here. So thanks again for that intro. Yeah, I will tell you, it's an exciting time these days to be working at NASA, to be working the Artemis mission. What I want to do tonight is kind of give you an overview of where we are with this rocket, with the first rocket down at Kennedy. I also want to share with you kind of NASA's long-term framework for how we want to use this rocket. And then from there, we'll step through the progress of where we are, and then at the end of the presentation, I'll open it up to any questions you guys have. As Bruce said, some of my history goes back to shuttle. I'm an old booster guy. I finished out the shuttle program working from the booster project office, segued. STS-135 was our last mission, my last mission. And since that time, I've been working on, and there have been a number of folks at Marshall and across the agency that have been working on this rocket. So with that, let's jump to the next slide if we can.
Okay, and just a quick note, we're up to about 90 participants. That is an amazing record for us.
Wow, awesome.
Bringing them in, Brian. So everyone, please stay muted if you would. If you're signing in, please mute. Okay. Now, just so everyone knows, Brian cannot run the PowerPoint. I'm going to run it for him.
I'm going down.
Whoever just signed in, please mute yourself. We don't need to do that. I'll be watching I have a second PC going and YouTube running, so I'll be monitoring and muting people if they're not. So.
All right, thanks, Don.
Okay, so let me go back and go from current slide.
Yeah, so jump to
Get rid of this. I'll get rid of that bar. That'll go away. Okay, there, Brian.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. You'll see that photo coming up later in the presentation. Jump to the next slide, Don.
Okay.
All right, so these next couple of pages really lay out our roadmap for our return to the moon over the next 5 flights. Of course, it's the Artemis mission. The initiative is going to go well beyond 5 flights, but these next couple of pages just kind of give you an idea of what our near-term plan is. I will tell you that from my perspective, from my office's perspective, while we're looking at the multi-flight roadmap, if you will, it's pretty much all hands on deck, getting Artemis I ready in High Bay 3, and I'll go through that timeline here later on. But again, all hands on deck, trying to get Artemis I ready for its first flight here in a couple months. Let's see. So again, this page just kind of lays out the first couple flights. First flight's going to be uncrewed. We're going to go around the moon. You will see later on in this briefing a kind of a pictorial and a little bit of a timeline of what we plan on doing with the first flight. Second flight's going to have crew on it. We have yet to determine how many, what the crew size is going to be, but the intent is to take Orion around the moon and then back home. And then third flight, our objective is to put boots back on the ground, boots on the moon after over 50 years. And then you can see, meanwhile, while we're getting the first rocket and the first couple rockets ready, we've got another group within NASA that's building the outpost. We call it the Gateway, which is going to be, if you will, kind of like a space station at a Lagrange point or near the moon, and that will be kind of the segue back and forth down to the Earth's, the moon surface. And again, there's a whole nother group that's working that out year planning, but that's basically what you're seeing here, with the target being the South Pole, because we know there's water there. So again, first things first, let's get the first one off the ground while another group within NASA is working the long-term planning. And again, the segue here, you'll see in a couple pages, is using the moon kind of as an analog to get us ready for Mars in the outer years. But again, we'll get to that slide here in a bit. So go ahead, Don, if you go to the next slide. And so this is more about how we're going to build up the base camp on the moon, again, with the long-term objective of getting our astronauts used to living on the moon for a long periods of time, knowing that that home is but a couple days away. So again, this is our long-term plan. Go to the next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we're using the moon as an analog to the next steps, and that is to get the humans to Mars. And you can see there are many similarities of the activities that we can test while we're in lunar orbit or on the moon as we prepare for Mars. But you can see that the stepping stone is, let's get to the moon, let's learn how to live on the moon, and then our next steps will be Mars. So with that, let's see, Don, jump to the next slide. So this is the evolution of our rocket. Again, this has been 10 years in the making. We'll go from left to right, and some of you already may be familiar with SLS, with the Space Launch System, but it's basically the evolution path is really in 3 steps, both for the crewed version, which you can see on the left-hand side, and the cargo version, which you can see alongside the crewed version there. First 3 flights of SLS are going to be with the Block 1 vehicle. This is the vehicle that's going to provide 27-ton TLI capability, translunar injection capability to the moon. And the ConOps, again, for the first 3 flights for our mission, for our missions are putting the crew along with, if we have performance capability, we'll put secondary payloads in the spacecraft adapters, and we'll talk about that later on, how we're doing that on Artemis I. But we want this vehicle to be the national asset for this agency. Anywhere we want to go within the solar system, we want to use this rocket to do it. Let's see. So again, first 3 flights, Block 1, and then you can see in the middle, we're going to upgrade the rocket for a souped up upper stage, if you will. We call it the EUS, the Exploration Upper Stage. The intent is to upgrade that upper stage from it's going to have going from a 1 RL10 engine to 4 RL10 engine cluster. And again, that would it's going to just give us more opportunity to put whatever we want to more payload into a TLI or wherever we want to take our payloads within the solar system. And then ultimately, since we only have, and I'll talk a little bit about the heritage of this rocket, namely the boosters. We after the shuttle program, we saved 16 space shuttle main engines, and we saved enough booster cases for 8 SLS missions. So with that, there is a team underway as we look at the evolution of this rocket that's already designing the filament wound case boosters that we'll be using for the 9th flight and subsequent. That the filament wound case boosters are not only going to be obviously lighter, they'll be more durable, and the propellant that we put in them will be an upgrade from our heritage shuttle propellant design, and it's going to provide even more thrust capability. So you can see there on the right, we're going to go from 27 metric ton capability up to I think 46 or so metric ton capability, which again is a game changer. Today's current capability is 15 metric ton to TLI, so you can see the astronomical difference in how this asset can be of service to this nation. So that's really all I wanted to talk about in terms of the capability of this rocket, not only today, but looking forward. So Don, go to the next slide. So in terms of volume, I think just I think couple of tidbits of information. Basically, the capability certainly of this payload fairing volume for the Block 1B vehicle. Think of it. Think of being able to put 2 Hubble Space Telescopes into that volume. That's a pretty incredible feat. That again, when we get the design, it's already in development. But when we get the design to manufacturing and production, that you can consider that to be a pretty considerable capability. And then you can also see in terms of stats, 87 standard sedans we can put in this volume. So it's going to be a pretty incredible capability when we get this vehicle or this design actually built and stacked on top of a rocket. Let's see. Go to the next slide. And then as I talked about earlier, the evolution of this rocket, where we are today with the 15 metric ton capability today, with the Block 1 vehicle, the one that we're going to launch here in a couple months, that's got the 27 metric ton capability, and then by the time we get to the 9th flight, we'll have an opportunity to almost double that capability. So again, just incredibly capable asset for this nation. And again, you guys were talking about James Webb. Think about the other payloads, the other astronomy, the other telescope payloads that, frankly, we just launched James Webb. I don't know what the Science Mission Directorate is looking at here long term, but we've got a vehicle that could theoretically, take SMD type payloads anywhere within the solar system. So just something to think about. Let's see, next slide. And again, I talked about, more powerful rocket can provide a higher departure energy capability. So there was a time there where we were actually working on the Europa lander with our Science Mission Directorate friends, and putting it on this rocket was going to significantly decrease the time that it was going to take to get to its final destination. So while in the end that capability didn't pan out within the agency, I think Europa is going to use a different launch vehicle. We've got similar opportunities again when we partner with our friends in the Science Mission Directorate. So an unprecedented launch vehicle capability. Next slide. Okay, so just a little bit about Block 1. I think I told you folks about what the rocket, what it looks like, but this is a pictorial of the breakdown by element. You can see we are repurposing the solid rocket booster part, a lot of it, a lot of steel casing, forward assemblies, aft assemblies from shuttle. The unique difference about these boosters is on shuttle, there was a 4-segment booster, and these boosters are 5-segment. So a slight increase in the boost capability with these two 5-segment SRBs. We used to call them SSMEs, or Space Shuttle Main Engines. Think of the core stage as an external tank with 4 main engines on the bottom of it. It's not exactly the same analog, but that gives you an idea of what it looks like. And we'll see later on in this pitch what it actually looks like live as we took it from a Michoud assembly facility in New Orleans to Stennis, where we tested it. We conducted a hot fire of the core stage 1, put it on a barge, sent it down to the Kennedy Space Center, loaded it into the transfer aisle, took it up and over High Bay 3, and you'll see all that summary here in just a little bit. And then proceeding up, we call it the LVSA, the Launch Vehicle Stage Adapter. that's the interface between the rocket itself, the core stage, and our upper stage, our ICPS. And I apologize for using these acronyms, but the ICPS is the Interim Cryo Propulsion Stage. It's basically a repurposed, as you guys, those of you who know the expendable launch vehicle program, the Delta cryogenic second stage, we modified the design a little bit, made it a little bit longer. And that's basically the bottom part of the ICPS will be housed in the LVSA. And then again, the ICPS, you can see that white figure kind of on the middle right-hand side, followed by the Orion stage adapter. And I'll talk about the stage adapter in a little bit. Stage adapter is the interface between our rocket and the Orion. The unique thing about the OSA is we have the capability of, in fact, for Artemis I and possibly for Artemis II and subs, we have the unique capability of loading secondary payloads, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. For Artemis I, we've already got kind of a timeline laid out, a choreographed timeline programmed that for each of the 10 secondary payloads that we have on the rocket today, they've been timelined such that between here and the moon, they're all going to be deployed. And then from there, above the OSA is the Orion vehicle itself. And again, for the first flight, it's going to be uncrewed. Second flight, we'll have up to 4 astronauts in it. So that's kind of a look at what the Block 1 configuration looks like. Next slide, Don. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the solid rocket boosters. Again, Heritage Shuttle boosters, except we added a 5th segment to provide more more thrust capability. You'll see later on in this pitch a pictorial of how we assembled these boosters, at least from a forward assembly standpoint, in the vehicle assembly building. We used the same processes that we used on shuttle, where we would manufacture the hardware on a rail car, and then we would ship it across country down to the Kennedy Space Center, offload it, do some prep work on each of the segments before we brought them over and stacked segment by segment on the mobile launcher. So what you're seeing here is what looks like on the left-hand side is a grain inspection being done in one of the Kennedy facilities. In the middle, again, those are the stacked boosters. And on the right-hand side, looks like a test firing from out in Promontory on the T-97 test stand. So Don, you go to the next slide here. Okay, and then now you're seeing a short clip of the forward. This is the right-hand forward assembly that came up and over, and they're mating it to the right-hand forward. I'm sorry, yeah, the right-hand forward segment of the right-hand booster. One of the unique things I wanted to share here in this video clip is all of these platforms that you see were uniquely built for this rocket. On shuttle, none of these platforms existed. We had a different set of platforms that were designated specifically for the space shuttle for different locations, not only around the orbiter, but on the external tank and on the booster. So the Kennedy guys did a fabulous job of totally repurposing High Bay 3. It was an engineering marvel to have these guys put that together. Again, that was a lot of upfront work that they did to make sure that we were successful in this in the stacking operations. All right, so with that, Don, let's go to the next slide. All right, so I'll talk briefly about our core stage engines, our RS-25s, AKA our SSMEs from shuttle. Now, again, we've got 16 at the end of the shuttle program, we had 15 that were ready. We had to put together a 16th, and our folks working with Aerojet Rocketdyne are in the process of building engines 17, 18, 19 for those missions that go beyond Artemis IV. So that work is already underway, and I think you'll see a little bit of that as we go through the subsequent slides. So what you're seeing here is in the background there is a photo of a RS-25 engine firing down at the Stennis Space Center in Mississippi.
Hey, I paused it for just a second. I had to go to the restroom. Were you guys talking to me?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I thought I heard someone ask me a question, but I'll keep going.
And I think later on in the pitch, you'll see an actual video of one of those test firings. Typically what we do with this is the way we do business. We green run each engine before we decide to fly it again. And I'll talk about what we did here in a little bit with the 4 cluster segment on core stage 1, where we test fired at the B2 test stand in Mississippi back in March. So a lot of upfront work to get us to where we are today. Don, go to the next slide if you can. All right, thanks, Don. Go to the next slide.
If you said something during that, it doesn't come through. Couldn't hear you over the roar of the rocket.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I said a few things, but that they were immaterial. All right, so these are a couple of photos of core stage 1. You can see on the left-hand side, got a couple technicians that were actually building. I can't tell. I think this is the LOX tank. Going inside the tank itself, completing closeout work. Again, all the manufacturing work is done down in New Orleans in our Michoud facility, and then after that that gets completed, and it's done in a series of builds and joins. We did the forward skirt, the LOX tank, inner tank, engine section, and the LH2 tank were all built separately. And then at the very end of the process, they're joined together in a room, again down at MAF, and then we roll it out. We put it on the barge, and then we ship it off. So on the right hand side, you'll see core stage 1 being stacked in the B2 test stand. And then from there, we went through a series of tests, checking out the hardware prior to the green run that we conducted back in March. So a lot of effort with and a lot of care in feeding on what we call this golden egg. It's basically a proto-flight piece of hardware that we tested. We test fire, and now we're gonna fly it. All right, let's see. Go to the next slide. This is, yeah. So we want to test the hardware to make sure that our analysis is correct before we fly it. And so what you're seeing here are the testing of 2 structural test articles. On the left-hand side is the LOX tank. On the right-hand side is the LH2 tank. These are structural test articles that were built down at Michoud, shipped on the barge up to the Marshall Space Flight Center, and we tested them to failure. We took the data from those tests and compared it to our analysis to make sure that we were accurate with our loads analysis. Because again, you know, not these structural test articles, but exact duplicates are part of what's going to be flying in space. So we want to make sure we get it right. So you can see on the right-hand side, it was a really cool event. We actually pumped air into it until we burst it. Anyhow, test like you fly. So with that, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I talked about the green run before. And what you're seeing in the upper left-hand corner is the gimbal test that we did, sending commands to each engine, making sure they gimbal the way we expect them to gimbal. That obviously that's important for the ride up. And part of the green run checklist was this series of 8 tests that we did at Stennis in the B2 test stand before it culminated in the final test, that being the green run that was successful through 8 minutes of testing. So with that, we concluded, the Boeing and the stages team concluded that we were ready to ship core stage 1 to Kennedy Space Center. Let's see, I think that's all I wanted to say on this chart. And then this is the sound inhibited green run test. Now, I don't think this goes for the full 8 minutes. I can't remember how long this goes, but this is the cluster of 4 for the first time. We fired them all and successfully for 8 minutes. You can see the gimbling of the nozzles there. I will tell you that we had 2 test runs. The first test run, we cut it short because we were reaching limits that, as it turned out, we didn't need to be that conservative with. So we backed out on some of the limits, reran it. And again, the second test firing went for the full 8 minute duration. Just an impressive test and a culmination of so much work. And we conducted this again back in the March timeframe. So after again we finished up that 8 minute test, we went and we did some cleanup of the hardware, pulled it from the B2 test stand, and put it on the barge, and then sent it to Kennedy Space Center. So Don, this keeps spooling, so that, you can stop it at this point, but you can kind of see how that plays out. So once we got it on the barge and we got it to Kennedy Space Center, transported it into you're looking at the transfer aisle there. The Kennedy guys took over. They with ground support.
Everybody, it is 9 o'clock and I'm more than happy to play the rest of it. We're at 41 minutes right now and it says it goes to 1 hour and 22 minutes, but there's also a Q&A at the end. But did you guys want to watch on your own or do you want to finish watching this?
I'm down with keep going.
Yeah, I can hang.
Keep
You
going.
do, keep going.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Good to go.
sounds good. I'll hit and play.
Equipment, grabbed the core stage 1, and you're seeing here the choreography of moving it from the transfer aisle up into high bay 3, all the way on top of the VAB. And if you've never been up there, I would highly recommend it. It is a beautiful sight. So core stage 1 went up almost as high as you can go to the top of the VAB, and then up and over and back down into high bay 3. And there was a lot of planning, a lot of choreography that went into this event here. We actually had to pull the boosters. We had to spread them apart just a little bit. And you saw how the core stage 1, it kind of came down and then in so that it wouldn't, we wouldn't contact any of the downcomers with any of the ground equipment. I can't remember how far this goes, but okay, I think that may be it. Go to the next slide. Okay, so I talked earlier to you all about the LVSA. This is the stage adapter that Teledyne Brown built for us at the Marshall Space Flight Center. This is an aluminum alloy that we used to build this. This is the adapter between the core stage itself and the upper stage, and you'll see here in a little bit how the ICPS fits on top of the LVSA. The upper stage fits on top of this the stage adapter. So that pictorial on the left is the stage adapter in the transfer aisle of the VAB before we took it up and over, which you can see on the right hand side. Go to the next slide, if you can. And here's the ICPS. Here's our upper stage. And then you'll see in a little bit, you'll see, I think, a video that shows the upper stage actually coming down and stacking on top of the launch vehicle stage adapter. Again, as I mentioned before, it's a repurposed Delta second stage that we've lengthened a little bit. We did a lot of work was done in Decatur, Alabama, which is not too far from where I live here in Huntsville, Alabama. We put this on the barge, sent it down to the Cape, and they did some work over on the Air Force side with getting it finished up to the extent they could, and then the folks from ULA brought it over under the guidance of and with the help of the Kennedy Space Center ground support team over into in the VAB into the transfer aisle, and again it went up and over and made it onto the what we call the LVSA. Go to the next slide. And again, we're going to be using the ICPS for 3 flights. Hey, I want to talk briefly about the modal test that we had to complete for this first flight. It's the modal test is it's a pre-flight test of the stacked rocket. It's basically a series of vibe / ping tests that we use to measure the response of the vehicle to imparted forces. And we finished up the testing back in September. And why that's important is because our control algorithms for this rocket, for how to control the rocket, are based on models, and which again ultimately is loaded into the software. We want to make sure that what our models think, how we think the vehicle is going to respond to forces, aligned with the modal test that we conducted. We basically went up and down different regions on the stack and basically pinged it to see how it would respond. And so we completed that test in September. You're probably wondering what that blob is on the left-hand side. Well, as it turned out, the Orion spacecraft wasn't ready yet in time to support our modal test. It was over in another facility at the Kennedy Space Center, but they did, knowing the importance of this test for the first flight, they came to us and they said, look, it's not going to be ready, but we'll build you a simulator with the same mass property characteristics. And they went off and did that in conjunction with the Langley Research Center. and built this simulator for us, brought it over. We stacked the simulator on top of our stack, went through the series of modal tests again in September, concluded by mid-October that, you know what, our models match the testing, we're good. And with that, the folks at Kennedy, they were ready to bring the Orion over. And so we demated, not only did we demate the Orion mass simulator, but we also had, recall I was telling you all about the Orion spacecraft adapter that is just below the Orion. It's got those, it's got 10 secondary payloads in it. Well, those secondary payloads, we were trying to wait as late as we could to get them installed in the spacecraft adapter. And so we used a spacecraft adapter simulator for the modal test as well. So when we finished the modal test, we pulled the Orion mass simulator off. We pulled the Orion stage adapter simulator off. And with that, we brought in the flight OSA that had the 10 secondary payloads already mounted in their dispenser locations. And then we brought the Orion over and completed the stacking of the entire vehicle, tip to tail. What you're seeing on the right-hand side is our launch director. It's Charlie Blackwell Thompson. She's going to lead this launch. I've worked with her before. I worked with her on shuttle. I'm looking forward to that opportunity again to work with her. And then on the bottom right-hand corner is our engineering support center here in Huntsville that was monitoring the modal testing, took the data, and the engineers didn't necessarily have to go down to Florida for this test. They could have monitored it from Huntsville and did the analysis that, again, by the end of October, we concluded we were good. We can fly this bird. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. That's a long-winded story on the modal test, but you test like you fly. So I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so I was telling you about the, hold on guys, just a minute. So on the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that's the, I call it the OSA, the Orion stage adapter. This is the interface hardware between the rocket and Orion itself. You can see each of those on the outer circumference of the OSA are those 10 secondary payloads. And again, they've already been pre-programmed based on when we launch. They each know when they're going to be dropped off at their own bus stop. Some are going to be going to the moon. Some are actually going to attempt to land on the moon. Some are going to go to an asteroid, and some are going to do other things. And I'll share with you later in this pitch what they're all going to be doing. But you can see the OSA stacked on top of the rocket there, both on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. All right, Don, go to the next slide. Okay, so here's just a couple photos of some of the principal investigation teams that are completing final assembly of their secondary payloads before they were installed into their dispenser units in the Orion spacecraft adapter. Again, we've got the international engagement. We've got a couple payloads from the Japanese Space Agency that are going to be flying. Again, that NEO Scout, that's going to be going to an asteroid. And then you can see, and then some of these again are going to the moon. Anyhow, pretty impressive capability. And we're going to be flying more secondaries on the second flight. We're in works right now with the Department of Defense on those opportunities. All right, next slide. And then this is just a quick video of Orion stacked. If you get a chance to get down there, take the tour, go on the VAB. words just can't express just how enormous this thing is. It's bigger than our Saturn. All right, I think let's hop to the next slide. Yeah, and again, this is just these are the segments being stacked. And then there's the core stage 1 coming in to be made. LVSA, ICPS, the OSA with the 10 secondary payloads in there, and then the Orion. Just an incredible feat by the ground team at Kennedy, planning all this. And again, just a reminder to everybody, this is not, again, I worked a number of shuttle missions. This is not STS. This is STS-1 all over again, because we haven't done this in 10 years. We haven't stacked in the VAB in 10 years. And a lot of the technicians, the seasoned technicians that we had on shuttle are retired or gone off doing something else. So there was a learning curve. Thank goodness you had enough graybeards around like me that remembered how we did things and could help train the next group. So this is just again the first in a series of missions where we're gonna need the team to stack not only this Block 1 vehicle for the first 3 missions, but then when we get the upper stage, we're gonna have to learn how to stack that vehicle as well, and then ultimately Block 2 with the 9th flight. Okay, so you guys we've been spooling this a little bit. So again, just an amazing feat by the ground ops team. Don, you can jump to the next slide. All right, so
the people who subway door, they look down there very high up, so it's a switch.
okay, thanks, Don. So today the rocket's stacked, and we're in the middle of as I mentioned, a series of tests to check the vehicle out tip to tail. In fact, we're in the process of doing those tests right now as we speak. We've got groups down in High Bay 3 over in the Launch Control Center that are performing these tests. At the same time, Charlie's getting her launch team ready to launch this mission. We've got a countdown sequence test coming up later on this month, where a number of us will be going down to Kennedy, and we're going to go through the countdown all the way down to around T-minus 30 seconds, where we hand over the vehicle from the ground side to onboard, the onboard auto launch sequence process. And then from there, once we finish, we call it CST, we're going to button up the vehicle. We're going to ship it out. We're going to roll it out to pad B. We're going to load the rocket with propellant. We're going to conduct what we call a wet dress rehearsal, or a WDR. And that's going to take us down to about T-minus 10 seconds. We will stop the count right before the main the RS-25s start. We want to exercise the complete cryo cycle, and I'm sure we're going to learn something from WDR that we didn't expect, and we will do what we have to make whatever modifications accordingly to meet the timeline. We'll roll the vehicle back into High Bay 3. We'll finish up a final set of testing, checkouts. We'll add some range safety hardware, check that out, and then we'll roll it back out to pad B. And then hopefully, if all goes well here in the next couple months, we'll go through the countdown and we'll launch this vehicle.
Brian, when do you have an idea of when that's going to happen? The first test? I'm going to be going to Kennedy in March with some friends, so I'm just wondering what the time.
It could be as early as March, but I'll tell you, Kathy, that and what my bosses, keep reminding me is, well, we're going to launch when we're ready, but it could be as early as March if all goes well. But we'll just see. Again, think of this as STS-1 again, and
right. But it seems like I'm not going to be able to miss it if I'm there.
Well, how long are you going to be there?
Well, we're taking some friends over probably the beginning of March. So it's going to be either in the assembly building or out on the pad, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You'll see the rocket. Yes.
Yes.
We'll see the rocket.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Kathy. Let's see. Go to the next slide. So this is a pictorial of our flight profile. And you'll see a video here in just a minute, a 2D representation of what we're going to be doing. It's basically a one orbit around the Earth, and then use the upper stage for the translunar injection of Orion, along with the secondary payloads. They're going to still be attached to the Orion spacecraft adapter. And those will be, again, dropped off. I think is that A? I think that's what A signifies there, but I'm not sure. Anyhow, Orion's going to go around the moon, and then it's going to, it'll do, I think, an orbit, and before it then goes into a distant retrograde orbit around the moon, kind of test out the systems, and then come on back home. And depending on when in the launch window we actually launch, that mission can be anywhere from 26 days to 42 days. Again, it's all going to be dependent on the launch window and where we are relative to the moon. Go to the next slide, Don. Next slide shows the 2D animation. Launch from Kennedy, go around the Earth one time. TLI, boom, takes us on the way to the moon. And again, you don't see it here, but there are bus stops where the secondary payloads will be dropped off on the way to the moon. Goes around the moon, distant retrograde orbit, and then back to Earth. And if all goes well, we'll land in the Pacific Ocean. All right, that's for the first flight. Next page. So one of the things that we really want to do with this first flight is we want to test out the heat shield. We can test it in subscale testing test areas that we've got here in the United States, but there's no substitute for the real thing. So we're gonna, we want to test out reentry at Mach 32. We want to test out, obviously, all the rocket systems, all the Orion systems. Obviously, test out the recovery systems and retrieve Orion. And then you can see we've exercised most of the ground processing capabilities at Kennedy Space Center. And we also want to deploy those secondaries. So those are our objectives for the first flight, to make sure we're ready to send the crew on the second flight. Go to the next slide, Don. So I told you about the different payloads. There should be 10 here on this slide. And you can see some will actually be going to the moon, some will be going around the moon, some are going to the sun. You can see there's the one that's going to be somewhere between the Earth and the moon. And then you can see the ones on the right-hand side. So truly an international effort, a lot of excitement, not only within NASA, but external to NASA with this opportunity. See, I think that's all I wanted to say about this slide. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Artemis II. So even though I spent most of the time tonight talking about Artemis I, meanwhile, we have been building our flight hardware for both Artemis II, which is the crewed flight, and Artemis III, which is boots on the moon. Go to the next slide. So you'll see on this slide some of the hardware that's already been built. And you can see Senator Nelson, who's our administrator now, in the middle. Of course, he flew on shuttle. This is he a couple months ago down at Michoud, standing in front of one of our tanks in the facility. So again, the hardware is real. Booster segments are all completed. They're all in the barns, waiting to be shipped down to Kennedy Space Center. The RS-25s, aka the SSMEs, Space Shuttle main engines, are all sitting at Stennis, waiting to go. So now it's a matter of completing core stage 1. Core stage 2 hardware, and then bringing it all back together. Next slide. So we've also got so Artemis Iii. This is boots on the ground. Third mission. We've already got hardware in the queue as well. As part of its manufacturing process. Go to the next slide. So again, more hard. Well, okay. Here's some more of that hardware again. We've got, and you can see on the upper left-hand side, we even have the booster segments, most of them ready for the 4th flight. So we are really thinking ahead. We're getting our hardware ready to fly for that 3rd flight. And you can see on the bottom right-hand side, we're doing umbilical testing for that exploration upper stage I was telling you about. This is the souped up version upper stage with the 4 RL-10 cluster that's going to provide more thrust capability to get us out of Earth orbit and on its way to the moon with our payload, whatever payloads that might be.
Keep her down.
Go to the next slide. So that's really the end of my presentation. That's my story. I will tell you all, I feel very honored to be part of this team. And I look forward to, with you all, helping watch us make history again. And this is real and it's happening. And I really want to thank you all again for listening to our story, because it is our story. It's not my story. It's this nation's story, and we're ready to go back. So I think that may be it, Don.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's it. So
All right, everybody, I'm back. I figured if you want to watch the Q&A, you can pull that up on your own time. But I hope everybody enjoyed it. I mean, I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Very good.
I know, Jeff, you thought you was the only rocket guy, but I didn't think I was a rocket guy, but I thought that was interesting.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is the launch you were talking about, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, the first one that's going around the moon. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Go.
I was just telling my wife, I was like, hey, you want to go down there?
Yeah, Randy said it's in June, so I don't know where he got that, but he's got inside information because he gets it from the NASA people, you know, and he knows somebody, so we may get a little bit closer than the average people get, you know. I'll find out more about that too.
Yeah, if you find out something, let me know.
I'll try to drag him to the next meeting too, in person, so he can give it to you straight.
Sounds good. I mean, I'm glad that Don sent that video out there, but that was interesting.
Yeah,
it was.
All right, well, if nobody's got anything else, I guess I will close this out.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Take care, everybody.
All
right. Not everybody.